Hello, Republic of Gamers, and welcome to ROG Pulse, your weekly gaming and technology podcast here at the Republic of Gamers. Guys, my name's Jake Kalinsky. I'm joined here once again by Jeff Campman. And Jeff, today we had AMD show off the Zen 3 Ryzen 5000 series that are coming up very soon. What'd you think of the event?
So, as a I'm a dyed-in-the-wool PC builder, so it was just really exciting to see this. Um, the biggest thing I was happy to see them focus on with Zen 3 or Ryzen 5000 was certainly per core performance. Um, the top line figure, 19% generation on generation per core performance improvement.
It's pretty good.
And yeah, in an era of Moore's questions around Moore's law, it's just really cool to see that kind of improvement still coming out the door.
Yeah, I mean, they showed us pretty much what we expected to see. I think everybody was expecting to see a nice upgrade from the current Ryzen series and a good variety on Ryzen. Is there anything in particular that stood out to you? Was it really just the focus on the single core performance upgrade?
So, yeah, I think that is the single biggest question around any new CPU launch is what's the improvement per core, basically. What are we going to get there, and then whether we get more of them. We're in a pretty good place, I think, if you're a mainstream PC builder and you're like, I want more cores. Well, especially with Zen 2, but now with Zen 3 and Ryzen 5000, you can get anywhere from 4 cores around $100 up to 16 cores for
800.
700, 800.
Yeah.
So it's like no matter how many cores you want, you can get them. But what each of those cores can do, certainly as a CPU nerd, is the predominant question. And single core performance improvements are really nice because that makes everything you do on your PC faster. From browsing the web, opening your Office docs to playing games, even. And perhaps most importantly for us, because with all these new high performance graphics cards coming out, and the high refresh rate monitors to take advantage of them, you want a PC that can drive that both ways, because some games do take full advantage of all your cores, and they drive the GPU as hard as it can go, and others, on the other hand, they do fall back. How fast can you run like a single thread? How fast can you make a single function go? And so when you run out of performance, basically how fast the processor can feed work to the graphics card, that is the ultimate cap on how fast your PC can go. So when you see a figure like 20% performance improvement for like 1080p gaming, that's really exciting as a gamer.
They talked a lot about 1080p gaming, but they didn't talk a lot about 4K gaming. And that's something that I found to be pretty interesting, because we're now kind of entering an era where 4K gaming is finally becoming a reality. We're seeing these new graphics cards that are going to really be able to handle more than 60 FPS at 4K. Is that just like because it's easier and there's more people that are still playing on 1080? What do you think there?
I think especially for esports, you're looking at games that are not the most graphically intensive out there.
True.
And that's just a function of, you don't need like perfect shadows, perfect ambient occlusion, all that stuff when you're trying to run up the score in Rocket League or whatever. Or find somebody in CSGO and land that headshot in CSGO. I mean, CSGO runs at well over 300 frames per second.
And a lot of people will play at low settings instead of ultra high because, again, it's not about the graphics. Yeah, that's true.
How soon can I see things change in game?
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's a reasonable baseline for where the CPU comes in for gaming applications.
I guess my follow-up question is, should we expect a similar performance increase when playing at 4K, or is it just totally different?
I think It's an interesting question, and it's entirely system dependent.
Hmm.
Um, it may even come down to the game you're playing. But I think typically we can say if you're playing a modern AAA game, I think you were playing Squadrons last week
Yep.
at 4K.
Yep.
You weren't going over, I think we landed in the 80, 90 FPS range.
Which is pretty good
Um,
on a 2080
yeah.
with a modern
Mhm.
CPU.
Yeah. And I think in cases where you're really CPU bound, it's really in the games really start to exhibit that in like the 200 FPS and up range is where you really run into that problem. Or
Okay.
it's not a problem. It's not a problem really. It's just a fact of how games run.
Right.
And so we're talking really high refresh rates. Um,
But that's a reality. We have monitors that
yeah.
can now support that.
Yeah, that 360 hertz display is it's something else. So yeah, and again, it makes everything faster. And when you can put 16 of those cores on one chip, um, it's just a really exciting time to be a PC enthusiast.
It definitely is. Right now there's just so much technology and so much news to look forward to. I want to
Mhm.
be optimistic about availability with these CPUs, but I guess we'll cross that bridge pretty soon.
Yeah, and I don't think it's generally been a big obstacle. I don't recall it being an obstacle in past
I
launches.
just feel like the demand is higher than ever before because there's so many people
Yeah,
at home. There's so many people that are getting into PC gaming and streaming that want to make that upgrade.
yeah,
So
that's true.
who knows? I mean, it really could be
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Um,
Well, fingers crossed that they're abundant and available to everybody who
I
wants
hope
one.
so. I hope so. So let's just going down the line. We have the 5600X, and that's going to be $299,
Mhm,
and then we've got the Ryzen 7 5800, $449. Bump up to the Ryzen 9 5900. You're looking at spending $549, and then if you
mhm.
want to go to the 16 cores, the 5950, that's the big boy,
Yep.
$799. That's
Mhm,
you can do a
mhm.
lot with that.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just again like when Zen was new, um, around 2016. I think it was around August 2016. I was actually in San Francisco at the event where AMD debuted um, the performance of Zen 1, the 8 cores and 16 thread version of Zen 1. And it was a really exciting moment because it's like, okay, well, 8 cores and 16 threads used to be the provision of much more expensive high end desktop platforms. And now
Big
that's
money.
just, yep. And now we're just, that it's solidly mainstream.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm. And
299 as an entry point is really, really
mhm,
accessible for PC
for this
gaming.
kind of performance,
Yeah.
yeah, for this kind of performance. And what's yeah, I mean, and if you look at the clock speeds, for example, like they haven't changed a lot from generation to generation. So all that performance gain has come what you might call the hard way through just sweat on engineers' brows. Um, which again, as a CPU nerd, that's just really exciting. It's like, what kind of magic did they have to work under the hood to get 20% better performance per core without leaning on clocks as one of the major pillars of that increase?
Yeah. And also their
And
power. It's very power
yeah,
efficient.
yeah, that also is really interesting. I'm really interested to see how that plays out because it's the same 7 nanometer process as Zen 2.
Hmm.
So that's usually where you get a natural advantage is from moving from to denser product or process nodes rather for power. And so again, it's like if you fix that variable and you change all these other things, it's like that there's a challenge there. So yeah, the under the hood details I'm sure will be fascinating.
There's a lot
But
of
yeah, it.
fun stuff there.
Mhm.
Just diving
But
in.
yeah, more powerful, more efficient. Um, for only a few more dollars, that's just music. There should be music to any PC enthusiast ears.
Cool. All right. Well, I mean, there's not really a ton more diving in we can do until we actually play with the cards. Did they say late October for the release date?
So the release is November 5th. Is
Okay.
when they'll be available on store shelves, I think.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's really close.
Less than a
So we'll
month.
know. Yeah, we'll know soon enough. But one of the things, you know, with these new processors, AMD is saying, we have the performance crown now, um, across multi-threaded workloads, across single-threaded workloads, just across the board. Um, we wanted to be ready for that, and so we are introducing two new ROG motherboards, um, to you know to let people get the most out of these chips, with a few tricks of our own up our sleeves.
We actually unveiled the Dark Hero this morning,
Mhm.
which is a beauty.
Yeah.
I love
Oh
this
yeah.
board.
I looked at this motherboard and I was like, I need to build a PC around this. I don't technically need a new computer, but I want to build a PC around
You do
this.
now when you saw this.
Yeah. And so the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, one of the things we did with this, or I guess the biggest thing we did with this, we took a good established foundation, which was the Crosshair 8 Hero board. Um, and we went back, we listened to enthusiasts constantly. We're looking for opportunities to refine and push boundaries because it's just what we do at ROG. Um, and all of our X570 motherboards up to this point have had active cooling on the chipset, because X570 is all PCI Express 4.0. Um, it has numerous PCI Express 4.0 lanes. You have twice the bandwidth of the prior generation of that interconnect. And so moving all of those bits consumes rather more power, just as a natural consequence of that. And so to keep that chipset cool and performing consistently, we went out and we got a small custom designed fan. We selected it for durability, we selected it for long life. It's intelligently controlled so that it only spins as fast as it needs to in response to temperatures. Um, and it works really well. I have a Crosshair 8 Hero on my test bench, and the fan is practically inaudible.
That's
But yeah, and but it's also, there's also just a challenge here, which is, how do you cool this passively? How do you do this without a fan? Because we know some people are, and I totally sympathize with this position. Some people don't want to compromise on noise levels at all.
right.
Um, they want, you know, it's like, okay, I don't want a fan contributing to the noise levels at all, even if it is really quiet. Other people might say, okay, well, I want an even more reliable motherboard. I want one with no moving parts on it, even if the fan is rated for years and years of life. And so we hear you loud and clear, and we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, well, let's cool this passively. And so you can see on the chipset, we put this high surface area heatsink on there now. It extends back into the space between the two main PCI Express slots.
Hmm.
It's got all those big chunky fins on it.
Yep.
Um, and in our testing, our internal testing with the chipset under load compared to the actively cooled Crosshair 8 Hero, the non-dark version, uh, the chipset temperature on the dark Hero is only 2.25% higher,
Wow.
um, which is a real, yeah, it's a real success.
What goes into passively cooling? Like, how is that achieved?
So at a high level, it is all basically about surface area. The metal you use, I'm sure, has an effect on it, but it's basically how much can you put in the case's natural airflow path? How much metal can you put in the case's airflow path? Because no, most PCs aren't entirely fanless. You have some intake and exhaust fans. You have
Right.
graphics card fans above that.
Yep.
But it is basically a game of increasing that surface area. So the more fins, the more metal, the better you can cool it. But in a way, I mean, it's actually kind of incredible. We passively cooled this chipset without any auxiliary heat sinks or heat pipes snaking out of that and going elsewhere on the board. It's all confined to that one module. So yeah, I mean, it's a real feat.
I just love the
You know.
aesthetics on this board. I mean, it's beautiful. We're talking about PCIe 4. That means it's going to be fairly future proof. I know some people
Mhm.
hate that term, but when you look at it, you think about a board like this. If you're going in and you're spending this money on a board like this, because I mean, frankly, look at that. How many USB
Mhm.
devices do
Yeah.
you use? Probably not as much as I use. But when I see this was
Yeah.
a 12, I drool with excitement because
Mhm.
I mean, I've got way too many peripherals when it comes to my setup, multiple cameras for my
Mhm.
streaming setup. And this is just monstrous. Wi-Fi 6 support. It
Yeah.
has literally everything in the modern tech scope
Mhm.
that we're looking at for the near future. And
Mhm.
I need one.
We hopefully, yeah, I want to see you build with it.
That would be a lot of fun
So,
actually. So maybe
yeah.
maybe that'll happen.
Mhm. So yeah, the passive cooling, it's totally silent. The Crosshair 8 Hero, the predecessor of this board, had like smoked chrome accents over the chipset and the I/O shield. These are all blacked out,
Hmm.
as you can see. There's RGB LEDs on the chipset
Yep.
and on the I/O shroud, but they're pretty subtle. So yeah, it's a really nice looking board.
And that's all built
Um,
into Armory, the
oh
RGB.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Aura RGB control is all in Armory Crate. So you get full control over Aura RGB LEDs on your motherboard, on your peripherals,
Nice.
all in one spot.
Yeah, I
But
mean, when it comes to throwing
there's
everything on there,
yeah.
your RAM, your GPU, it'll be nicely spread out. If you're a fanatic for that, if you don't want it, you can disable it.
Mhm. And I think there are two addressable headers and two traditional RGB headers on there as well. So
Hmm.
if you want to extend it with other devices like light strips or stuff like that, you have full control
You
over
can go all
that
out.
stuff too. But there's another interesting aspect of this board that you can't see because it's all under heat sinks. We upgraded the power delivery circuitry as well. Um, the Crosshair 8 Hero had 16 60 amp power phases or stages. Um, this board, we upgraded it to 90 amp integrated power stages. So you have even more
Wow.
current delivery
Yep.
potential. Um, and it's a teamed power stage design, which we use on a lot of our motherboards. So it can respond to the transient loads of modern CPUs more effectively. Um, and by transient loads, I mean, modern CPUs can idle, they might idle at 100 megahertz or something like that if they're not like in even deeper sleep states. So they'll be drawing next to no power. But if you have a 16 core CPU like that 5950X, you go from idle to, I don't know, 4 gigahertz on all the cores in less than a second. And that's a huge shift
Yeah.
in power demand. And so you need a board that can keep up with that. Um,
Interesting.
and and so having 16 of these teamed power stages is, we're specifically looking at that transient load characteristic and making sure the board is up to it.
Yeah, it really goes zero
Um,
from to 100.
and because they're integrated power stages, premium components, they're also really efficient. The VRM heatsink, I can say from experience on the standard Hero is already really effective. So in tandem with those efficient components, you won't have any issues with VRM throttling or anything like that under heavy loads either. So it's just a really great platform for, whether you're just trying to get the most out of your stock clock processor, you're overclocking a little bit, it's built for it.
I'm just sitting here visualizing a 5950 plop there in the slot, maybe a 3090 plugged in.
hmm
Hmm.
Putting those PCIe 4.0 lanes to work.
Man, that would be a good looking machine.
hmm
One can
So yeah,
dream.
yeah, it it may yet happen.
Well, this is the Dark Hero, and I
hmm
think it's safe to call this an enthusiast's motherboard, right? This
hmm
is on
Right.
the high end side, right?
This is this is just full of enthusiast friendly features. You can see up in the upper right corner there's power buttons. There's all sorts of external controls. Like if you're running on this on a test bench, like I usually run boards. I think there are voltage sensing points on the edge there. So if you're overclocking and you're trying to monitor your voltage externally, you can put
Very cool.
probes there.
Nice.
Um, it's got premium audio. Obviously, all that connectivity, you have dedicated buttons on the back panel
Yeah,
for BIOS flashback and clear CMOS. It's the whole enchilada for sure.
the whole enchilada. A question from chat says, "Is this compatible with the new Ryzen CPUs?" Yeah, that's exactly
Oh
why we're
yeah,
talking about it because this
oh
is
yeah.
built to support them directly. That is why they're
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, and it's not the only, obviously not the only board by far that will support those chips.
Right.
All of our 500 series motherboards will support those new CPUs. Um, just if you're already running one of those systems, keep your BIOS updated. And you're planning to install a new chip, just keep your BIOS updated. Visit the support page. Make sure you have the latest one. There are several ways of updating it through both the firmware and Windows. Um, but yeah, all of our 500 series boards will support the new CPUs.
So yeah, I'm planning a build for my wife right now, and if I went out and bought a B550F, that could work with the new
Hmm.
Ryzen.
Hmm.
Perfect. That's what I want to hear because that might be happening.
Hmm. And yeah, I mentioned BIOS flashback earlier, and that's
Yep.
actually a really nice feature. It's like people are like, well, why would you ever need to update the board without a CPU? Well, it's exactly these generational transitions like this, where you don't necessarily, motherboards get updated at the factory, and so they will usually support the latest chips. But if you, in the unlikely event that you were to get a board with BIOS flashback that didn't have the latest one on it, you can just plug in your power supply, use another PC to make a flash drive with the firmware on it, plug it in, press a button, it updates automatically, and then you're good to go. You don't even need the processor or memory in the board.
It would just pull it off the
It's a
USB.
really, yep,
Wow. I did not know that.
it's a really handy feature.
Yeah.
Many of our X570 B550 boards have it.
This model is called Dark Hero.
Hmm.
Brand new. Showed it off this morning officially, but it's not the only board we have to show off today.
No. So yeah, again, the theme with Ryzen 5000 series is, these are leading performance CPUs, and no matter what platform you want to build with, whether that's X570, whether that's B550, um, we want to give builders the best no compromise option. And for B550, we are upgrading the top end board in that lineup as well. So this is the B550-XE gaming. And the way we went about doing that for this board, like the Dark Hero, it now has a 14+2 VRM topology with those 90 amp power stages. So that VRM is fully ready to support,
Yeah.
even up to the 16 core processor. Um, and yeah, so that you can see there's a fancy new IO shroud design too. There's some vents in there because that's an actively cooled VRM heatsink when it needs to be. There's a
Really?
fan on it. Yeah,
I love
so
the
it can draw.
slash through the whole board is what it
Mhm.
looks like. It's
Yeah,
very cool.
it's really nice. Um, but yeah, so this again, no matter what platform you want to build with, we want you to have a no compromises experience. And this is just one of the ways we do that. And so the VRM is upgraded on this board as well, but it has another twist. If there's B550 provides for one PCI 4.0 M.2 slot, which you can see at the top of the board there, that heatsink running above the main PCIe slot,
Mm-hmm.
and one M.2 PCIe 3.0 slot from the chipset. Because the difference between X570 and B550 is that the PCI Express lanes from that companion chip are PCIe 3.0 rather than 4.0. But again, you don't want to compromise. If you're building with M.2 PCIe 4.0 devices specifically, you don't want to drop those back to 3.0 for any reason. And so we don't have a picture of it, unfortunately, but we are bundling our Hyper M.2 card with this motherboard. And what that is a separate card that plugs into your PCIe slots and provides up to 4 more PCI Express 4.0
Wow.
um, M.2 slots. And so with this board, where you can get PCIe 4.0 by 8 in the 2 main PCIe slots, you can add 2 more M.2 devices. with that full PCIe 4.0 bandwidth and get active cooling on it, and just basically go nuts with your storage configuration.
I mean, flexibility is a good thing for sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're slapping 4 hard drives or more into your machine, which is
Mhm.
becoming more and more common nowadays because the price of a hard drive
Yeah.
is so much lower than it ever has been before.
Mhm. Yeah, and M.2 is so handy too. I mean, if you're expanding, you're just like, okay, I can take this little gum stick sized piece of
I
silicon that
Yeah, and it's a terabyte, and it's going to do everything I needed to at speeds greater than anything else. It's really
Yep.
wonderful. We
Mhm.
actually have some questions rolling in here in chat,
Okay.
and one of them is: are there viable advantages of a X570 board over the Dark Hero?
So the Dark Hero is X570. Um,
Right.
Now, if the question is, is there an advantage of the X570 chipset over B550? Um, like we've been saying, X570 is all PCI Express 4.0 for like USB ports, for PCIe slots. No matter what peripheral connectivity designers choose to run off that chipset, it's all PCIe 4.0. So you're getting that next generation bandwidth no matter what. And PCIe B550 still delivers PCI Express 4.0 from the CPU to the main PCI Express slot and your first M.2. But everything else on the board is PCIe 3.0. So it basically depends on what your demands are. If you're looking for all out, no compromises performance, no matter what, X570. But B550, again, it's another good option.
So comparing it to the current X570s, what is the difference with
Mhm.
the Dark Hero and the current X570s that are out there?
Okay, yeah. So the current X570 boards all have the active fan
Yep.
on the chipset.
So that we're really going down to
So
the passive cooling.
yeah, it's passive cooling, upgraded power. I think this is our only X570 board with the 90 amp power stages.
Okay.
So yeah, it's if you want that combination of passive cooling, fully locked and loaded VRM for that next generation platform, um, that's the
It's
one.
good. Yeah, it's going to be the level up, especially if you're
Mhm.
going for something like the 16 cores, as you mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah.
Very cool. Question for me: if I want to build a brand new Ryzen machine and you had to pick one motherboard, which model would you go for that's currently available? Because I'm curious. I'm putting you on the spot on air.
Well, I have the advantage of experience, right?
Yes, you do.
I have the Crosshair 8 Hero, so that's my favorite, which is why I'm so excited to see the Dark Hero, because
Okay.
it takes a great platform and it's building on top of it. Like that board can do anything. So
There's
plus
no.
it just looks really cool.
My wife wants an all white PC. I might have to make her compromise. It's okay.
Mhm. Well, I mean, yeah, we were talking earlier. You have the B550-A, which is white and silver, and it looks really nice.
That might be the way to do it.
Yeah.
There is. Do we have a release date? I don't. I haven't seen it myself for the Dark Hero.
Not yet.
Okay. Not yet. Soon TM.
Soon TM.
I would imagine. I mean, when we look at the new AMD chips coming right around the corner, a month away.
Mhm.
Again, I'm speculating, but it seems like we're
Mhm.
priming to be around a similar
Yeah.
time. But again, I'm speculating. I have no
Yeah.
idea. That's not me, guys.
Don't know for sure.
Everybody thinks that, oh, you're on the ROG channel, you must know everything that's happening. No, I don't. We do a lot of cool stuff here, and I am not privy to all that information. But really, really
tell
cool.
you, but then we'd have to kill you.
That's fine. I don't need to know. A lot of fun. Anything that we might not have gone over with the new boards?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
So exciting times, guys. I mean, we just had the NVIDIA RTX announcement a few weeks back. It's already been like a month.
Mhm.
Now we're looking at next gen Ryzen. The 5000 series
Mhm.
looks wonderful, right? Just that nice incremental upgrade from where we were. Looking
It's more
forward,
than
more than
an incremental upgrade.
exactly.
It's
It's a
a
nice
real
leap.
generation on generation
Yeah.
boost.
And soon we're going to see exactly what AMD has to show for their graphics cards. A lot of people are,
Yeah.
there's always tons of like rumors that come out saying, "Oh, well, it's going to be closer than to the 3080 than we expected."
Mhm.
We don't know. We don't know. We
Mhm.
really don't. And it's going to be really fun to see if they can match
Yeah.
that or come close.
Yeah, they gave us a glimpse today.
They did.
Yeah. And I mean, it's exciting. So,
I
but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, I don't think we have a price for the Dark Hero. I have not seen it. No price yet. So,
No release date, no price yet. Stay tuned.
yep, stay tuned on that front. Yeah. What it was the end of October that we're hearing about the new AMD cards, right?
Yeah, there's a separate AMD event.
Like October 28th, I
I,
think
I
is
yeah, I think it's October 28th. They gave us a teaser today, and then they're going to talk about it in more detail
cool. More to look forward
later
to.
in the month. Yep, it's a really exciting time.
Well, guys, that pretty much does it for us here on Pulse. Kind of a shorter show this week, but this is a show that we do every single Thursday, talking about a variety of things. Next week, we're going in kind of more of a behind the scenes look, and we're talking about our enemy matrix display. The enemy matrix display is something we've built on some of our laptops where it's pretty much a customizable array on the back of the main display. It's really cool. We're going to be talking to some people over at headquarters and breaking it down and going in deep. Week after that, we're doing a teardown, I believe, on the Zephyrus Duo. And speaking of the Zephyrus Duo, I'm actually going to be streaming on one tomorrow and showing off. I mean, I've been streaming for like 10 years, and I've played around with pretty much any kind of streaming technology that you've not even heard of, right? It's just something I'm really passionate about. And the cool thing about this laptop is it actually is built so that the second display can be your entire streaming dashboard for showing everything from chat to your log to everything. It really is cool. And I'm going to have a camera pointing at the laptop showing you guys how cool that is, because it's sincerely perfect for anybody that's trying to become an aspiring streamer. And the fun thing that I'm looking forward to, Jeff, you don't even know I'm doing this. I'm taking my old monster ROG laptop that you guys sent me like 5 years ago when I was a pro commentator.
Oh wow!
And I'm going to show the side by side of what a top end gaming laptop that I needed in order to create content with back then and what it looks like now. And I think it's hilarious because it has come a long way in 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, like mobile processors is a whole different story. Like the G14, you have a 14-inch notebook, 8 cores, 16 threads, RTX GPU. It's just incredible that that's in such a thin and light chassis now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the Duo 15 is its own brand of unique.
2080 Super, i9. I mean,
I'm jealous every time I hear those words. You tell me how great that second display is.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for Jeff and I here at ROG Pulse. We'll see you tomorrow at ROG Live, 4 p.m. Eastern. And till next time, GG's.